Moscow, and this, of course, is Red Square. Behind me is Lenin's tomb and the Kremlin with its beautiful golden domes, and over there that extraordinary piece of architectural confectionery, St. Basil's Cathedral. Now, we in the West are quite used to seeing this scene, because we see it thronged with thousands and thousands of Russians celebrating on May Day, for example. But there are other Russians than these Russians that you see, however briefly, on your screens. And Lee and I have come here on a special journey. We're going to take you to the remote parts of the Soviet Union to show you not only the animals and the plants that live there, but the people who guard and protect them and study them. As always with a trip of this magnitude, there are 101 things to be done and people to see when you arrive, before you can set off on your travels. One of the first engagements was to appear on an extremely popular wildlife show. As in television studios all over the world, there was a great deal of tension and what appeared to be chaos reigning. But it turned out, as usual, to be organized chaos. Our host was Dr. Nikolai Drozdov, who was to become a firm friend.
What is the main purpose of your first visit to our country?
Well, the main purpose is to make 13 half-hour television programs. And, you know, practically nothing is known in the West about the countryside in Russia, the animal life, the plant life, and so on. Practically nothing. And so what we want to show is not only Russia apart from Moscow, but we want to show the people, and we want to show the animal life and the way that you're working to try and preserve it, because that's very important.
After this, we went for a book signing to Moscow's biggest bookstore. I was astonished at how popular my books were in Russia. Everybody, it appears, reads them. Even, I discovered later, the police on guard at the Kremlin. Everywhere I was treated as if I was a sort of reincarnation of Tolstoy. I think the immense popularity of my books in Russia, and natural history books and TV programs in general, showed how the people have a deep interest in and a love of nature. After signing hundreds of books, we were whisked off to a reception at the Canadian Embassy. Here, the ambassador, Peter Roberts, introduced me to a man I'd long wanted to meet, Vladimir Spitsin, director of Moscow Zoo.
Я когда был в Великобритании и у вас в зоопарке, я не смог с вами познакомиться.
When I was in England and I visited actually British Zoo, but I failed to meet you.
But he came to Jersey?
А вы были в Нью-Джерси? In Jersey.
And you didn't meet me?
А вы были в Америке.
The only reason I come to Moscow is to come to the zoo. And so the next day, we took him up on his offer and went to the zoo. I'm very jealous that he came to see my place before I saw his place.
Еще есть возможность друг к другу ездить. Время есть.
Good, good.
Looking green and beautiful.
Well, what is the first thing he wants to show me?
Ну, найдем что.
The Moscow Zoo was established in 1864, and like old zoos all over the world, much of its caging is archaic. But the condition of the animals testified to the care they received from Dr. Spitsin and his staff.
The first animals we saw were the spectacled bears, very familiar to us because we keep them in Jersey.
Вот здесь. Стоп. Здесь вот маленькая самочка.
This is what you call Lee.
Да, прекрасно. Видите, как она прыгает?
Of the two cubs that were born in Jersey a few years ago, one was sent to Moscow and became the mother of this little one they kindly named after me. The other went to the National Zoo in Washington.
Она тоже будет размножаться в московском зоопарке.
It's wonderful that you've got a female because...
Или на Джорджи.
This is the only species of bear found in South America. Its numbers in the wild have seriously decreased, and its survival may depend on cooperative breeding programs among zoos around the world. in a sort of zoological détente. All zoos have certain animals that are the public's favorites, and here in Moscow, the walruses always draw a crowd.
Marina, this one weighs half a ton, you think?
Less.
Less than half a ton. That one weighs a ton.
More important than pure entertainment, Muscovites have an opportunity to see the animals that live in the faraway places of their enormous country. These massive animals inhabit the cold northern seas, and they're still endangered in the wild in spite of legal protection. Another animal that lives far from Moscow, but that we hope to see in the wild, is the unusual musk deer, a secretive creature from central and eastern Siberia. It's one of the few deer that don't carry antlers, but the male grows long, dagger-like canines instead, which he uses in fights against rivals. Males also produce the musk used in perfume and soap. Unfortunately, females and young are often trapped by mistake, so overall numbers are declining. Musk deer are found in dense forests on mountain slopes, and the Moscow Zoo staff has done an excellent job of recreating their natural habitat. The zoo has an impressive breeding record for endangered species, like the snow leopard. Although we were planning a trip to the remote mountains of Central Asia where the snow leopard lives, we had little hope of seeing such an elusive creature in the wild, for there are probably less than 3,000 left in the Soviet Union. Breeding programs in captivity may well be its last chance for survival. Another breeding success at the zoo is with the cheetah, which once ranged from Africa right up through the Middle East and into the Soviet republics of Turkmenistan and Tajikistan. Its numbers are declining in Africa, and it has virtually disappeared from the rest of its range.
One litter was born, I think, on the 29th of August, and the other one on the 5th of May.
Stamp of those front feet, it's so extraordinary.
The females here are used to having the member of staff who looks after them come into the paddock with the babies, but were clearly nervous about us. One of them gave a rather fearsome display, while the babies carried on nonchalantly in the background.
Maureen, you said these were in two different litters. Well, does the mother of one litter take care of the other ones?
Yeah, yes, we do.
So it's just a family. It's like a big family with two mothers.
One reason for the cheetah's disappearance has been the drastic reduction in the numbers of its prey, particularly the Central Asian gazelle. We were planning to visit a breeding reserve for the gazelle near Bukhara, and were told that one of the cheetah cubs would soon be sent there as part of an experiment to re-establish the natural predator-prey balance in the region.
We visited their herd of muskox, of which they were rightly proud. We were greatly looking forward to going well north of the Arctic Circle to see the herds of wild muskox and to film them. Is it?
Yeah.
Lovely animals. The Arctic herds were the result of an extraordinary program of cooperation between the Soviet Union, Canada and the United States, a story we hope to investigate while we were up in the far north.
Это большая была программа советско-канадско-американская.
You say you bred 8 here?
Вы сказали, что вы здесь 8 вас развелось?
Да. Да, родилось 8.
Excellent. Lovely animals. Shedding their winter coats now, aren't they? The city of Moscow has grown up around the zoo, allowing no room for expansion. But the staff make the very best of what room they have. Here we saw the special off-view area for rearing baby birds and met Galina Bogdanovich, who runs it. It was obvious from the moment we met her that Galina, like all the other staff at Moscow Zoo, was a great enthusiast. Working in a zoo anywhere in the world means long hours, hard work, and generally a meager salary. So you have to be dedicated to your charges to get satisfaction from the job.
I just devoted most of her life to zoo work.
That's
wonderful.
I believe she's got some wonderful birds to show us.
Думаю, что у вас есть многие прекрасные птицы, которых вы можете показать нам.
Да, конечно. У нас разные
Certainly, we have many birds.
Разных. Идемте.
Though she handles everything from ostriches to ducks, birds of prey are her first love.
Где моя птичка?
People who have a special interest in a species or a group of creatures soon build up an enormous rapport with their animals. And it was obvious how Galina felt about her babies, especially this young golden eagle.
Ой-ой-ой, вот большой. Вот большой. А смотри-ка, что у меня есть. Может, ты хочешь посмотреть? Дай тебе.
Very wisely, all the birds of prey in Russia are rigorously protected. This is only sensible when you consider the valuable work they do in keeping down the numbers of rodents. All over the world, birds of prey are threatened. So it was nice to see the wide variety of successful breeding programs developing here.
Вот он.
Это step eagle. Прекрасно.
Это будущий орел.
That's the future eagle.
Вот так.
How old is this one, Marina? 5 days. Just 5 days.
3 дня освоения начали.
Поэтому
сколько
они, все
приносили,
хищные
сколько они
птицы у нас
погибали.
включены
Из-за этого.
в Красную книгу. Под
Под
строгой охраной.
So
Да,
this,
да, да.
this makes
Да.
farmers
Только
and people
факты.
like that
Фактически материал.
much more aware of how important they are. This adorable little bird is a steppe eagle. And these, of course, are an endangered species in the Soviet Union. And the Moscow Zoo has now bred 3 of these. This is a very important breakthrough because if you can start breeding these and other endangered birds in captivity, you can then build up stock and repopulate areas where they become extinct. And this is what they should be able to do with the steppe eagle as they go on from success to success in breeding.
Another behind-the-scenes look at the Moscow Zoo took us into the research laboratories.
Does he like that, Ole? Does he like being stroked?
Yes.
Okay. On his head?
Whoops. Now you've got him in the Sea of Japan.
Yes.
Oleg Shubarev is enthusiastic about his work, and his affection for his animals is boundless, especially for his tame octopus.
Grown a lot.
Yes.
Grown a lot. And here?
Ah.
There. See the way his mouth's right tucked away there.
The maximum size of this is 10 meters in diameter.
10 meters?
10 meters in diameter tentacles.
Good heavens.
And the weight 100 kilograms. It will be 100 kilograms.
What are you going to do when he grows that big?
Now I design a new aquarium from 2 tons capacity, special. Yes, a new flat.
See the wildest way he opens and closes. Oh, look, he's turning colour.
That was to your hand.
Does he turn other colours, green or blue or?
No, only red, white, maybe. When sleeping, white like a milk.
Yes, yes.
And when very angry and very afraid, red, very red.
Yes. Well, that's because he's a Soviet octopus.
Yeah. But they live in the United States too.
and they're red there too.
This place is full of treasures, isn't it? Look at those, aren't they lovely?
Oleg is particularly keen on amphibians and excited about the success of his current work with a rare toad from one of the regions we were going to visit, the Caucasus Mountains between the Black and Caspian Seas.
They live underground, Oleg?
Indeed.
Oh,
I wash it.
I can milk it. Oh, it's lovely.
The Caucasian spadefoot toad has a smooth, shiny skin like a frog, and not like the rough skin of true toads. Its name comes from the sharp, spade-like structure that grows on the inside of the foot that it uses like a shovel.
So what have you been doing with this?
Oh, we breed it in captivity. 1,000 exemplars.
1,000?
Yes, of this very interesting frog. And after that, we, on the plane, go to Caucasus
oh yes?
with a little baby.
A little dam was specially built on a stream in the Caucasus to provide a completely protected pool for the hatchlings from the Moscow Zoo.
Dying out in the wild?
Yes,
Yes.
a very little area where they live.
Where they live, yes.
It's very seldom now in Caucasus.
So you have released 1,000 back into the
Yes,
wild?
yes.
That's
1,000.
marvelous. That's a wonderful piece of captive breeding. And so you found a special area to reintroduce them?
Yes.
But the adult toads are difficult to study in the wild because they spend all day underground. They bury themselves so quickly and efficiently that there's nothing on the surface to betray their presence.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Very efficient.
She leaves the surface of the ground absolutely unmarked. This is the imperious Stellar sea eagle, one of the biggest, rarest and most handsome of the Russian eagles. Here he was having his portrait drawn by Vadim Gorbatov, the well-known bird artist.
С нашим
The sea eagle is in the red data book for the USSR. These books are extremely important to all conservationists, for they are illustrated lists of plants and animals whose numbers are declining in the wild. They state the reasons for the species' decline and make suggestions for trying to save it.
много работает в зоопарке.
He's been working a lot.
Известный наш художник-анималист.
It was Vadim who illustrated all the birds of prey for the red data books of the USSR.
Советского Союза.
It's his drawings I've been seeing in the red data book.
Так это ваши рисунки в красной книге?
Да, не все рисунки, но птицы мои. Птицы,
Yeah, not
почти
all
все
the
птицы.
drawings, but almost all the birds.
All the
I think.
birds, yes, they're marvelous.
Вот ваши рисунки я видел в красной
Да, да.
книге.
So these are merely guide sketches for him.
Яркий, как у попугая. Желтый, крупный.
One with a beak, which is big and yellow, like in the parrot.
Yes. There's the International Red Book, which deals with species on a worldwide basis. Russia has a general one covering the whole of the USSR, but as the country is so vast, it was found necessary to have a special Red Book for each one of the 15 republics that go to make up the Soviet Union. All these Red Books are modified and added to every few years, so we're getting an excellent picture of which species most urgently need help. The color of the book was chosen because red signifies danger, the terrible danger of extinction. At the end of our tour, we were greatly impressed by all we'd seen, and so it gave us great pleasure to call a small press conference and present the zoo with some rare pheasants we'd bred in Jersey. A good zoo is a cultural necessity, and it's just as important as having a good ballet, as having art galleries,
Также важно, как иметь хороший балет, галереи
or museums.
или музей.
So I'm very glad that now on my first visit I can bring you a small gift. They are the greatly endangered white-eared pheasants. We were lucky to get 2 pairs from China,
Нам повезло, получили 2 пары из Китая.
and we have now bred over 200 of them. And I hope that you will breed over 200 of them as well.
Я тоже надеюсь, что вы размножите
Thank you
дальше
very
до 200. Там anything closer.
I know. Congratulations. Good boy. The exchange or the lending of animals is a comparatively new system in the zoo world. But as animals in the wild get rarer, the value of the captive gene pools becomes more and more important. And therefore it's vital for zoos to work closely together, more especially when they're holding specimens of creatures which are threatened with extinction in the wild.
Marina.
Considering how cramped the zoo has become over the years, Moscow has a wonderful breeding record for rare species. There are plans afoot to move the zoo to a more spacious site outside the city. It's to be hoped that this will be done, for it will enable Dr. Spitzin and his dedicated staff to expand their important conservation work.
Конец, он говорит мне. Еще раз огромное спасибо.
Yeah, once again, many thanks.
Does he like them, Marina? Are they
I'm
pretty?
very glad,
Да,
yeah,
конечно.
very
Мы
much.
мечтали о
We
них.
dream
Это
of
одна из наших специализаций фазанов.
This is one of our specialities, Peggy.
On our last day in Moscow, we had the pleasure of dining with some of our new friends to talk about where we were going and what we would see. It was at the home of Professor Rurik Burma, a well-known ornithologist, whose dining room was, needless to say, filled to capacity with singing birds. He co-authored the Field Guide to Birds of the USSR with Professor Vladimir Flint, one of the foremost Soviet conservationists.
All the lovely animals.
Here, here. It's to them and the animals. And of course, there was Nick Drozdov. We would meet Nick and Vlad later on at some of the nature reserves. But meanwhile, we asked them their general views on nature conservation in the Soviet Union. You've already mentioned, captive breeding and the Red Book and all that. What do you think from now, in this state now, is the greatest challenge to conservation in this country? The next big step to do? What's the most important thing to do?
Yes, that's an important next step that should be done, that the net of nature reserves and protected areas of different kinds should be developed until that level that they will represent all the landscape peculiarities of our country, all landscape zones and regions, and that is very important for the future.
Now, we have a net of nature reserves from tundra in the north and till deserts in the south. It is about 1% of the territory of all our country. In different republics, this percentage is different, but in the general, it's 1%. It's too few. Our country is a special country because we have a very big territory. And now we have a possibility to choose the most interesting areas before development. Before development, yeah.
I think that's very important because governments all over the world do not consult ecologists and biologists. They go and do something, and then when they create the damage, they then ask the ecologists and the biologists and so to cure the damage, and you can't do that.
The nature conservation is not only for nature, but for us. If we do not conserve nature, we can kill themselves.
Our Russian friends echoed the feelings of conservationists everywhere, that to protect nature is, in the long run, to protect ourselves. The size of this country is almost impossible to imagine. It's the biggest nation in the world, covering 1/6 of the land on the planet, and the diversity of its people and wild places is quite remarkable. So we were eager to begin our journey, to see the mountains, deserts, lakes, forests and plains of this vast country, and meet for ourselves the other Russians.
Join us in our next program when we're taking you to the Ochre Reserve, where in the spring they launch a mammoth rescue operation because the Ochre River floods its banks, traps animals on little islands all over, and they have to go out in boats in order to rescue them. And we'll show you exactly how this rescue operation is done.